Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? Welcome back to the YoVideogames podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Andrew.
And once again, thank you to all the generous patrons who've kept us going for over 475 episodes.
Yeah, if you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. Dude of the week is David D. Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
And David, you got a special episode because the news all sucks. So we're going to do a positive episode.
Yeah,
we're going to balance that out.
There's a balance. Going to bring balance to the force, to the universe.
We're gonna bring back some positivity. And you might be saying, are you guys the positivity guys? Yes. Shut up. Yes.
no, but yes.
We're very positive. We are happy people. It's just that there's been a lot of bad news in gaming lately. But the whole theme of this episode is games that maybe got overlooked or got too much hate. There's 7 out of 10 games. They're not 8, 9, 10. They're not groundbreaking, amazing, blow your socks off games, but they're good games. You can play you could spend money on these games and feel fine about spending money on these games.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a game, you don't know what to play. These are perfectly good games. Are they going to blow your mind? Probably not, but you might find like a favorite, like a secret favorite that you didn't expect to be in there. We're also going to go for movies too, because I can't help myself.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, literally, my inspiration for this was recently. It was in line for the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland, and I was like, 5 is, we talked about it before plenty of times on the podcast, but I'm like, that's a 7 out of 10 film. In no way is it an 8, 9, or a 10 film, but it's a solid 7 out of 10 film. And I don't know why everyone is like obsessed with like how if it's not the greatest thing ever, if it isn't like, if it's not competing for number 1 in my mind, it's a terrible film kind of thing. And I'm like, we need to bring back 7's.
Well, yeah, that's content creation as the churn. That's the problem. It's like if it's not the most amazing scream, my God thing, it gets absolute hate. It's hyperbole as a product.
Right.
And the thing is, there's no one that makes any sort of living on the internet that isn't guilty of it.
Right.
We have whole podcast episodes devoted to the joke of doing nothing but clickbait. And I think we can have where we purposely titled it clickbait and then tried to be as hyperbolic as possible. We have done that. Now, granted, we said we were doing that in that episode, if I recall correctly. This is years ago now, because we've been doing this for a decade. We're coming on a long time. But to ease us into this, I'm gonna bring up a movie that basically nobody saw, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah. And the ground rules here, I'm not arguing. This is not an argument. This is not a debate. This is a filibuster.
Okay.
So you are going to give your you give your speech without interruption why a 7 out of 10 is a 7 out of 10 and not a 2 out of 10, or 3 or a 1. I'm not here to debate it necessarily. Maybe a little bit at the end, but I'm here to I'm here. We are here to give the 7's their spotlight, their time in the sun.
Okay.
So I'm not going to interrupt you necessarily, unless you're looking for a question out of me or whatever. But I'm just saying, like, stand.
Or if I say something atrocious, I'm okay. I'm okay if you call me out. I can live with it.
Basically,
I'm gonna start with. I assumed that this was a terrible movie. And then a listener, a dude, was actually like, no, it's my favorite character. And he gave an argument as to why it's worth watching. I'm talking about Blue Beetle. Now, I had always assumed and did not see it in theaters, and sort of just based on the, not even the talk about it. It was kind of like the trailer a little bit. I was like, yeah. But no, dude made a good argument. And I was like, I'm going to give it a shot. And now even he huge Beetle fan will not be like it's a 10 out of 10. For him, it's 10 out of 10 because he's a huge Blue Beetle fan. But he was like, there's some stiff acting. It's got the same problems that a lot of DC films have, that a lot of superhero films have. But it is fun. George Lopez plays a conspiracy, addle-brained, like uncle. Yeah,
Is
the
he the one
thing.
who calls Batman a fascist in the trailer?
Yes, yes. Uh, Uncle Rudy. Now, granted, any of our listeners that have a Mexican uncle of this variety, like if you have Mexican family, you have an uncle or a cousin that is like Rudy. He's too smart to be where he is, but he also believes that like literally everyone is out to get him. That's Rudy. And George Lopez does amazing. He is my favorite character in the entire movie. Most every scene he is in, very funny, like very fun scenes. The I would say that the most fair criticism of it is that the movie follows exactly the formula of superhero stuff.
And this
But
is
there's
Jaime Reyes, right? This is not
yes, this
Ted
is Jaime Reyes.
Cord or whatever. They don't even probably.
Ted Cord's in it.
Oh, he is.
He's the original Blue Beetle,
Yes,
but
but he
Jaime,
never got the Blue Beetle to activate.
right? Yeah,
I can't believe I know this little bit of the DC lore.
it's a key plot point of the movie
Okay.
because Ted Cord's sister is the villain.
Oh, okay.
And he's been missing, and Ted Cord's daughter is the love interest, and that's how Jaime Reyes gets mixed up in it, and then he gets
Okay.
chosen by the Scarab. And there's plenty of the same cringe that happens in superhero movies, like as they have gotten more and more repetitive because every superhero story that's based on a comic book is basically based on the same plot points.
Yeah.
But the family dynamics of the story are like it's the performances are they vary from really great to a little bit stiff, but like there's like it's good heart. It's a good heart core
Hmm.
to the story. And so it makes you willing to overlook the more like mundane superhero isms and focus
Right.
on just the fun of it. And
Because
it's
superheroes kind of, if I may interject, it feels like a lot of superheroes, their origin stories, or at least their family background, is one of two things, and usually both, of some sort of tragedy or just sort of like loss in a way where it's like Batman's all tragic and
yeah.
Superman is like, oh, my great legacy parent father, that I didn't really know. Or Spider-Man is also tragic because his Uncle Ben dies, and then it's just sort of like, oh, trying to
And
keep the house with Aunt May. And none of them just have like a big large, I mean, Shazam was like an orphanage,
right.
or something,
Well, there
so.
is tragedy here, but it is also a little bit more beautiful. I'm gonna give some plot points away. I'm sorry. If you haven't seen Blue Beetle by now, I hope I'm not ruining it for you. You should go watch it. It is a 7 out of 10 film. You don't know what to do tonight? Throw on Blue Beetle. You'll have a decent time. But like his dad dies, and a core theme is that Jaime Reyes doesn't know his purpose. He doesn't know what he should be doing. And his dad is sort of like they bond in the movie where his dad's like, "Well, I never really knew what my purpose was either, other than like doing what's right for you guys, keeping the family together, keeping, working to take care of you guys. You guys were my purpose." And he has this moment where like he comes back after the tragedy, and his dad, instead of being like morose, is very positive. There's like a afterlife scene,
Hmm.
and his dad's very much like, what your purpose is now is to like protect people and take care of the people in your community and stuff, and you've always been good at that. And it's this nice kind of like he doesn't have this struggle with power. He never has like I mean, there's a little bit of a moral debate in part of it, but like it's not like part of my problem with a lot of superhero stuff today is that the evolution they've chosen to take was this like now every hero is morally gray. There's this constant debate of how morally gray they are. Like even
Mhm.
Superman has some darkness to him.
Which is like to me is like so counter to that character
Right.
entirely.
And it's fine in little doses, but like we've just gone too far. The pendulum's gone too far and now I'm tired of that. This was like there's a little dose where he's confronted with anger and then has to like he gets overly angry and has to confront that, but his moral like register, his moral code never like he's never debating about how to abuse the power or use the power.
Mhm.
Like he's a hero, period. And that's nice. It is refreshing. Now, I'm not going to sit here and be like it is an Oscar film. No, but it is a solid 7 out of 10. You want to watch an adventure action superhero movie. It's got cool visuals, it's got some cool fights. Rudy is excellent. And again, if you have Mexican family, you have a cousin or an uncle like this. Like, I mean, really, if you anybody family at all, it's just he embodies like I've got a cousin who sort of is just that. Like, I mean, it's not the uncle. My uncle was a professor and wrote like medical textbooks and just the exact opposite of Rudy. Brilliant, but also like very mundane. Like
Yeah.
mundane's not the right word. Like normal. Not like not Rudy in that sense of like Rudy was not made for a cookie cutter. Like there's no part of Rudy that makes sense in the normal society type thing. My cousin, that uncle's son, to a T. Like he is 100% him. Like,
Mhm.
but he is also brilliant. He would like he could. I remember when we were like, I think I was maybe 15. He rebuilt a hot rod. That's how he learned to work on cars. He just decided he wanted this type of car, so he bought an old beat up shell and just started buying pieces of engines and building the thing himself. Like he is that tinkering kind of friggin' Rudy. um but he also might believe in chemtrails. I don't know. He could. So 7 out of 10. Go watch Blue Beetle. Is it going to win an Oscar? No, but you're probably going to have a good time.
Yeah.
I can keep going. I got another movie.
He's Andrew standing a 7 there. I think okay, so I don't want to like there's a huge temptation for me to take a game that's considered generally like a 9 or so or more and then say it's only a 7. I don't want to like I'm not trying to drag something down here necessarily. So, I would say I'm gonna take something that's kind of just a little like I want to like something that we haven't really ever talked about. And here's a game you might have seen, you might have heard of, you might have whatever, but like obviously didn't get any sort of like major press. And I'm gonna talk about an RPG from the 360, and then eventually found its way onto on PlayStation stuff, eventually PS3 or 4 or whatever. And that's Eternal Sonata. Now, this is a perfect 7 out of 10. It's not
Yeah.
an 8. It's not a 9. It's one, it's too short. Two, it's just a little too simple.
Isn't
But it's a
Chopin the character in that?
yeah. So
Yeah, yeah,
one of
yeah.
the main characters is Friedrich Chopin, and he's on his deathbed, and then he has this. He's not because the thing is like it's tempting to say, is this another isekai? It's not an isekai. He's not whisked away to another world. He's having a fever dream about another world about it like
Okay.
and the game is like this very sort of like weird meta like the RPG is like this really weird retelling of his life in a sort of a way, and there's a whole other set of other characters and whatever, and he's one of them. um and it's just sort of like it's just generally interesting is what it is. It's not going to blow your mind, but again, it's very much it plays it out like a Tales of game, like battle system wise and everything, and linearity and what have you. But yeah, again, not an isekai. Like the game ends when he dies, like in real life. Like they have cutbacks to him on his deathbed or whatever. And
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
he does pass away, and that's the end of the game. And there's a big existential, speech they give twice for some reason. Um,
Because you got to go with it. Man's on his deathbed.
but it's a weird, interesting kind of, okay, this is certainly a take. Now, normally we're used to especially Japanese RPGs having a really weird um name. Like they'll have some really bizarre title, and that's kind of maybe the only thing that sticks out for them. This
Right.
one, it's more of a bizarre premise, and it almost, there's a couple points you might think it might kind of lose you, but otherwise, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like it's always going to look good because of how hyper stylized it is. Again, it was like one
It
of the,
was on GameCube too, wasn't it?
no, it was started on 360. um
I could have
and
swore
then
that it was on GameCube. I
you're
don't know
thinking of
why.
Tales of Symphonia.
No, I mean we played that too, but my brother loved. He actually legitimately loved Eternal Sonata.
Trail Sonata,
Yeah.
it's a really fun time, but it's very linear again, and it's very short. It's like
Yeah, it's not
15
long.
hours,
Yeah.
maybe 15 hours kind of thing. You can beat it in a weekend, like without even thinking about it. Um, and it's again, it's not doing anything new other than just how weird the story is. The music is really good. I mean,
Music is pretty good, yeah.
the main game is composed by Motoi Sakuruba. And then you will have pieces of Chopin in there, obviously, as it should.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's more just, hey, this was a rather interesting diversion, and strangely, because it was a game made mostly by Tri Crescendo, and I think Namco published it. I don't know if they had any development hands on, but it's a weird sort of world where you would think this would have been like the sort of prototype
Right.
for the Tales of team to do it, but it really wasn't, because it wasn't the Tales of team or whatever. But um it's one of those, like, look, if you just wanted something that was going to be like a Tales of game, but you don't have time for a Tales of game, and you kind of just, but you don't want to play an action game or an arcade game, you kind of want something a little more narratively focused, something very colorful, something that's going to stand the test of time. This is the kind of game that you kick back on a weekend and just sort of not even try too hard, but steamroll through, because it's just fun and interesting and weird, and it's just not something you hear about every day. Um,
I can't believe like the moment you started to talk about it, I knew exactly what you're talking about because it's one of my brother's favorite games, and he's the only person I've ever known to have played really to have played it. Like I watched
it's
him play it for
it got a little bit of, like, fame, just because of how it
Rodney
was
loved it too.
the early 360 games.
Yeah.
Um, one of the, or not early, not 360. I'm sorry, one of the early 360 RPGs. Like,
Right.
it was at this point where Microsoft was really trying to make headway into Japan, so they gobbled up a bunch of exclusives. Didn't work out for them in the end, though. But either way, like, is it, obviously, like, some people will say, like, there's Lost Odyssey, which I'm not really going to get into that because I haven't beaten it, but I mean, that's more highly regarded. So as far as like this game and some other ones, pretty good, pretty good game. Not terrible. No, it's definitely above average, but it ain't going to win. It's not going to win any awards. It's not going to be in anyone's top 10 list. It's not going to be on any top 10 list. But you
That's how
know,
I feel about East 8. It's like
mm,
I liked East 8. I played East 8. It's probably the game I played the longest. Any one game I played the longest on my Switch because I took it traveling with me.
mm.
This must have been
See, I'd argue.
years
I
ago.
mean, I would argue E8's way better than a 7, but it's also like, well, I don't
Uh, well, yeah, okay. I'm not no, because I'm not trying to like pull it down. I enjoyed it, but like 7 out of 10 to me isn't bad.
know. Right? Yeah.
It's just like when you start getting to 8, 9, 10, that's where I'm like, oh, 8 is like really good. 9
Yeah.
is like excellent. 10 is like perfect game. Like we're trying, like 7 is like, oh, it's a good game. It's worth every penny.
Yeah.
It's just like, you're not necessarily going to be
E's 10. It was close as like a 7, maybe an 8 for me.
Oh,
Um,
okay. See, I didn't play
Pretty
these.
darn good, but not quite as good as 8. 8's still kinda to me the peak of that series that I've played.
I mean, well, it's the only game of that series that I've played, so I might not have reference. Again, like I played. I had to have get over more than half of that game because I played and did all the side stuff, and then
Mm.
like I mean I 30
Did you
hours
get
into
on
that
the other
game
side of
easily.
the mountain? Did you cross the mountain and get and actually
Yes.
meet Donna and Dana or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Lacrimosa
that
of Dana. That's the
yeah.
part of the title. Um, yeah, I got fairly far into it. I didn't
When you
beat
get
it.
over the mountain, you're pretty much halfway.
Yeah, it's a good game. I like that game. I didn't really think it got enough love on the Switch at the time. But hearing you say that it's like a 9 or a 10 or whatever, like, okay, maybe it
Uh,
did.
I don't know about 9 or 10. 8,
It was an 8.
yeah,
Okay.
8 to a 9 maybe.
Solid. This is another solid game that you will not regret buying.
Oh,
Um,
I highly recommend people play Issei. But yeah, Charles Sonata is kind of like, look, man, if you just wanted a short JRPG that kind of played like a Tales of game, and you didn't want to go through a whole giant Tales of game, play Charles Sonata.
yeah.
That's the way to go.
And again, the music is great.
Yeah.
Music's great in that game. Um, I was going to start with an easy one, but maybe I'll go into my hardest argument right away. I'm going to argue that Resident Evil 6 is a 7 out of 10. I'm going to argue.
Now there's two people in the world. And those would be like, F you, it's way better than that. And then there's, oh no, I don't like, and then there's me, I'm like, I don't know, 7, that's generous.
See, I don't mind that there's people that think it's a 10 out of 10 game. I think they're wrong, but I don't mind that they think that. But I mind more people that will be like, "Oh, it's total trash. It's 1 out of 10. It's terrible." No. Is it a good Resident Evil game? Parts of it very much so, yes. But I would say that the biggest count against it is if you look at it only through the lens of a Resident Evil game. If you're looking at it purely as a game standing on its own, I think it easily meets a 7 out of 10. The combat in the game is very fun. Yes, you have to learn the controls yourself, but it is one of those games where you can find a million different ways to approach every fight in the game, especially when you're playing as Leon. Very fun. I would also argue that the first half of Leon and the first half of Chris's campaigns are genuinely good. As Resident Evil games, they're good. They're fun. It's really the second half of those where it goes off the rails. But even then, it's not bad. It's just not a good Resident Evil game. So you can get it for like $5. Is it a 7 out of 10 game when it's $5? Yeah, hell yeah. Like you are never going to regret spending $5 on Resident Evil 6. Like especially in the co-op. Like if you're playing it co-op, you're going to have a good time.
I would say, for me, yeah, you could maybe is an argument for a 7 if you got a friend to play it with.
Yeah, well, I mean, co-op always makes basic
Yeah.
co-op can make any game a 7 out of 10
It's
just
it's a
because.
it's it's a better balanced game solo. I don't It's not a better game, but I would argue it's a better balanced game solo than RE5.
Oh, but yeah.
RE5 solo is terrible, but RE5 co-op is amazing. Where RE6 is a little bit more like even. It's better with co-op, but
It's
it's not
significantly better with co-op
detrimental the way 5 is.
because the AI isn't nearly as bad as it was in 5.
Yeah.
So in 6 it's like, yeah, the AI is not amazing, but it's nowhere near as bad as 5. But co-op always just elevates. And I mean, the first 2 times I played through Resident Evil 6, I played co-op, and so I didn't know why people were so mad about it. But also, I played with DJ and I played with my brother, and we can make walking on razor blades fun. Like it's like so it wasn't until I played it solo that I really got an appreciation for a lot of the complaints. That being said, the complaints over the years have gotten again hyperbolic. It's a 7 out of 10 game. It is not a total utter failure. It is not a 10 out of 10 game, but it is better than average. Good graphics, the combat's fun. Yeah, and also you can shoot Simmons.
And I turn into a panther or a
A T-Rex.
Mothra or a T-Rex or
Yeah.
a million other things.
Look, does it make sense? No. I see you thinking about it. Stop thinking about it. Just think about Leon's part. Was it Lena?
Helena?
Helena.
Helena. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so see down here, the way they
Helena.
say Helena or Helena is Helena. And if you say Helena or Helena, like you would say on the West Coast, nicely, politely, everyone will correct you. When you're back here, it's Helena. Okay. Also,
All right.
that's another deep Southism. Uh, the South is back here, out west, back south, back east, or down south. So if you say, "Oh, I moved out here," people will correct you. It annoys the hell out of Southerners. Don't do it. You're welcome. I'm saving you. I'm making you more popular with every Southerner you ever meet. Apparently, I made all the mistakes for you. That and they all love Resident Evil 6. I assume.
Six is
Can
an
you
interesting one.
can you top a Resident Evil 6 arguing a 7 out of 10?
I don't think it's. I mean, personally, I don't even think RE6 is a 7 out of 10.
You
I
don't
think
really though.
I think at the most generous I can be is to say it's a 6.
No, it's a set.
It's
It
so
doesn't.
bad, like as a
No, it
total
doesn't run like
package.
trash. It doesn't run like trash. It
Yeah,
runs fine.
that's true. The funny thing is when I beat the game, it was on a review code, and the review code effed up the entire time. So every single interactable surface was hot pink the whole game.
Hell
Everything
yeah.
every surface that you could walk, run, or interact with was hot pink. The
I
texture
mean,
was just a hot pink thing.
to be fair, up until what 5 or 6 years ago, maybe they just assumed that because you were a reviewer or a game journalist that you needed all the help you could get.
Yeah.
We've seen some shit. Yeah, like I realize, yes, Gene Park has been around forever, and he is a true, dyed in the wool gamer. But for every Gene Park and Jason Schreier, there's also dudes from the LA Times who have never seen a game and they're reviewing it. So
Man, I think it
maybe
was USA Today. Yeah, other times USA Today, man. That Breath of the Wild guy. Oh my god.
amazing.
Hey man, he gave me like 15 more minutes on Breath of the Wild. So when it was brand new at E3 2016. So whatever. Oh boy. I want to argue this one's going to be a little hard to argue, I guess, in today's age, because at the time it was way more in it was more in a 7, but now I would argue it's still good. It's still a 7, and it can be either one. In fact, I'll argue the second one, and that is Vigilante 8 Second Offense.
Okay.
Now, I very much feel like was just better than that, but we have on occasion gone back to replay it. Time is not kind to those games and their controls and sort of everything. But I still think there's good time to be had in Vigilante. I still like Vigilante 8 more than Twisted Metal. In fact, I would still say Vigilante 8 1 on the N64 is still probably my favorite car combat game overall. Like I know it's kind of like between that and Twisted Metal 2, maybe Twisted Metal Black, but
Twisted Metal Black seems like the one that everybody really loves.
that game is so ugly, though. Oh my god in heaven! Like when you go back to play Twisted Metal Black, it is so ugly.
I can't even remember what year is Twisted Metal Black from.
Like 2002 or 3, um, maybe one. Is somewhere between it's 1, 2, 3, something like that. Um,
They're all like it's 2012? No, that's not
no,
Twisted Metal Black.
yeah, this is
2001. Yeah, it's
yeah
2001.
one. Okay, I knew it was 1, 2, or 3. It was somewhere in there. It was early PS2.
Look,
It is so ugly.
a lot of those games did not age well, though.
Right.
A lot of games from early PS2 did not age well. I mean, way more than there's so
Some
much nostalgia. Look, I'll even say that there's a lot of games on the GameCube which, in my mind, tended to age better because
Mhm.
it was textures. But going back and playing Resident Evil 4 on any sort of modern monitor on the GameCube, it looks like muddy shit.
It
Like
does.
it's awful.
The
Like a
thing
lot of
is,
those games did not age well.
here's the thing with Vigilante 8's, at least with Second Offense. I don't think it's as good as the first, but I still think it's a good time. They kind of tried to do a little too much, where you could add like skis or like hover stuff and make your car aquatic or whatever. What this kind of ended up with was it kind of
So
ended up
goofy.
making maps kind of awful to play on because half the map you needed to have skis or whatever or like flotation device on your car, so you needed to drive over that pickup. So if you didn't have that pickup, you were just kind of sitting around on the docks or on the outskirts of the map, not doing as much as you probably could have been doing. I don't think the cars were necessarily as interesting. And then it does also kind of suffer the thing where car combat generally involves you getting behind someone else and just sort of like grinding down their life, or just like piling on all the stuff at once, because you're not racing, you're in an arena. It's more destruction derby in that aspect of it.
I've never been a car guy, and so
Neither have I. So this is for me. It's like, look, I love blowing stuff up more, but I just don't think. I think they were trying to be more creative with Second Offense, but I think they overthought it a little bit, which is why I think the creativity of Vigilante 1, having like a ski lift resort area or like a New Mexico Canyon, all the other weirdo areas, like, airplane graveyard in one, or maybe not American. It was just the 70s, OPEC, oil crisis backdrop for Vigilante 8 1 worked better than Vigilante 8 2, which was just sort of weird sequel stuff. But I don't know. I think just it's still good. It's still a good time. And the thing is Vigilante 8 Second Offense is on Dreamcast, so there is an option to go find a cleaner, higher frame rate, better running version of those games on the Dreamcast rather than the N64 and PlayStation. Because the N64 and
hmm.
PlayStation 1, yeah, they're a little rough. They're pretty rough. As far as like frame rate, not even like I'm not going to turn into Jim Ryan here and talk about, oh, how could anyone go back to graphics like this? It's more just like, wow, this game runs at like below 30 most of the time. So you can at least go back to a Dreamcast version of Vigilante 8 Second Offense. And if you want to get maybe more 7 out of 10, we could talk about Star Wars Destruction. I think that's what it was called. It was the Luxaflux developed Star Wars car combat game for the Dreamcast. So
I
that's
don't.
also a thing.
This is memory hold. I don't remember this at all, and I feel like we would have bought that for our Dreamcast. Like I feel like we would have been the target market for that, and I did. This is called Star Wars. What?
I thought it was Destruction, but it was Demolition. Sorry, not Demolition. Star Wars Demolition.
Star Wars Demolition.
Yeah, and it's made by the Vigilante 8 devs, Luxaflux, and yeah, it's just a Vigilante 8 reskin of Star Wars.
Huh.
And that's probably a little more closer to your 7 out of 10, if you will, because like it's clearly doesn't have it's more of a hodgepodge of just Star Wars isms just thrown together into a Dreamcast blender. I think it is also on PlayStation as well, but
I almost put a Star Wars game on this, but in my heart, I knew that it was much better than a 7 out of 10, so I didn't.
oh, don't worry, I'll be back with Star Wars. But anyways, point being, Vigilante 8 Second Effects, Vigilante 8 Second Offense, Star Wars Demolition. These are fun, nostalgic romps, but to be real, you're not. I don't think you can't go back to those games and be like, wow, what a 9 out of 10 experience. Maybe you could if you had like a whole family get together, 4 players or something. But
It's really hard to go to a game that's 24 years old and be like, yeah, it's still a 10 out of 10. Like games have come so far. Like, I mean, just in terms of quality of life, I'm talking about. Like,
Mm,
just interactivity that you can like. It's just easier than ever to play a game, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Um, and I was going to put Star Wars Bounty Hunter in this, but the thing is that it's Star Wars Bounty Hunter is at least an 8 out of 10 for me.
Oh my god.
At least. At least one. Me and my brother played the hell out of it. There's this line in it that like is in the bloopers where the main villain goes, "I'm on the hunt," and he wiggles his fingers really weird. Phil and I will reference that line for all sorts of contexts. We have been doing this since we were kids. I don't even know when did Star Wars Bounty Hunter come out? That's
That's about a
2002.
two or
It's 2000.
3.
Yeah. Uh we have been saying that shit for so long, and
Did you
no
play
one
it on
knows where it's from.
PS2 or GameCube?
GameCube.
GameCube, okay.
Played it on GameCube. I bought the newest version of it. I haven't played it yet though,
Mm.
the re-release of it. Because I knew I had to. It's one of those things. It's just like, yeah, I got to do it. Um, I can't argue that it's a 7 out of 10 because I do genuinely like it better than that. But what I will say is, if you've never played it, you're not going to have a bad time. Like it is not
Mm.
a bad time game. It's just a good time. Get in there. Get on the hunt.
Okay.
But no, for my next thing, I will say 7 out of 10 game. Now there are people that like this game more, and I know this because when I streamed this game, there were people that genuinely really loved it. But I'm gonna say the Surge is the 7 out of 10
Mm.
Souls clone.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
liked the
okay.
world, I liked the mystery of it, the setup of it. The combat is I would say it's satisfying. I don't think it's as challenging as Souls. I'm not great at Souls because I'm not like great at
Mhm.
parrying type stuff, but I would say that it's challenging like a Souls game. It's not I don't know if it's quite as and we could get into the nuance of controls. Maybe the controls are tighter in the Surge than they are in
Sure. But here's the thing, and maybe I'm jumping ahead of you here. Okay, so it's not as good as a Souls game, but
it's good.
it's still a good like it's still you can still have plenty of fun with it, even if you're not going to get that highly curated 9 out of 10 Dark Souls experience or whatever. But
Yeah, you're gonna have fun, and it's futuristic too. So if you like sci-fi more than you like the
Mhm.
fantasy, you're gonna like this a lot. I never played Surge 2. I intended to, and I just never got around to it. So I don't know if it's like a huge leap, but I
Mm.
do know a couple people who really love the Surge 2. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's good, because both those people, I don't know that I would trust their taste,
No.
but they do love it. Like I would say that one, the reason I played the Surge is that it was free on PlayStation Plus, I think.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
game.
yeah. Hit one of those free months. Yeah.
So, in that sense, it is easy to hit a 7 out of 10. I didn't spend money on it. But what I'm saying is, even with separating that, like it would have been worth the money for a 7 out of 10 experience. And especially if it's on like Steam for like $5 or something like that. Like there's so many sales that happen. Like the Surge is a good time if you're looking for like a 7 out of 10, distract me for a week. Distract me from everything that's happening
Yeah,
lately.
yeah.
Um the Surge is it's solid. Like I don't want to oversell it because I had a good time with it. There's plenty of frustrating things just like in Souls, but it's not quite as hard as Souls. Like it's a little more forgiving from memory.
And that's what makes it a 4 because it's not challenging you every step of the way.
Touche. Touche, salesman. That could be the way I'm sure Jelly feels that way, and a couple other people that love the suck. Um God, I don't even know if that guy's dead. I haven't seen or heard from him in years. Hope he's all right. Um, yeah, I don't. I have a movie that I don't want to like. It's a 7 out of 10 movie, but I love it more than a 7 out of 10 movie.
Sure, but you know damn well that it's like a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, and once I say why I love it, it's you know, I'm biased. I'm biased as hell. But Horizon, I forget the subtitle of it. It's Kevin Costner's like ode to
Oh yeah,
ode to a Western.
An American Saga or something like that.
Yeah, like a Western saga or American saga. Um, if you like Westerns, especially if you like Westerns of the 60s and 70s, where it has breathing room, where characters are sort of like complex in the sense like, a guy might do the right thing for no other reason than the bad guy offended him.
Hmm.
And it's not that he's a good guy necessarily or that he's doing the right thing for the right reasons, but he's there and he was faster with a gun and that guy was a prick. Like that kind of like Kevin Costner's character is sort of in that realm. Um there's just like there's really great scenes, really great shots, and it's a movie where like if I think it's on HBO, I think it's on Netflix right now too. Yes, it is long, but if you enjoy a long breathing western, easily 7 out of 10. You're gonna have a good time, especially if you like a Kevin Costner one. If you
I
like
think this
open
is
range, you're
the
going
thing
to like
is though. I think the thing that drives people off, and I don't know if there's any cure for it. Is like some people just hate westerns. You know,
totally fair. I'm not trying to sell anybody that if you hate westerns, one, I get it. I grew up on westerns. I'm not sure that I would love
like if you hate
westerns as
westerns, is there ever going to be a western that's ever going to appeal to you? Probably not.
Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah,
Cowboy Bebop's a western.
because you have to just get it out of literally get it out of that time period and place.
Yeah, like if you hate westerns but you like things like Firefly, well, you're a liar because Firefly's a
It's
western.
a western. It's the whole
Yeah.
point.
There's a
Well,
lot of movies.
I think, and I've talked to a lot of people, and I think a lot of it for them is just it's period piece. They can't do period piece.
And that's fair. I'm not gonna try and shit on anybody who doesn't like westerns. I'm just saying if you like westerns, solid 7 out of 10. Um, is it The Searchers? No, it's not gonna be. It's not. I don't want to paint it like it's a genius movie necessarily, but I love it. I like Kevin Costner's westerns, and I like that he invested in
Your
it and didn't.
your favorite film is a western. You introduced me to my favorite western.
Yeah, well,
Um,
westerns are great.
so I mean, I already liked westerns before that. I grew up on them, but like, my favorite western, I didn't see it until you recommended to me from this podcast, from this very podcast.
Yeah,
So
was that a fistful of dollars or
few dollars more.
for a few dollars more? Yeah, great one.
This is the best. That is the best western movie I've ever seen.
It has, if not the best, it has the second best musical cue to any western.
I mean, I'd argue it does,
I
and I think that's what stands it up so much
that
is the
that music
musical cue.
cues
Well, it's not
insane.
even the cue, but just the chimes,
Yeah,
because and then yeah, because at the end when he's, I mean, like yeah, like the gunfight at the end where he's just like pick up the chimes when the music ends, it does, and then like he thinks he's about to end, and this guy's totally screwed, and all of a sudden you hear the second chime go off,
yeah.
and then we actually have to do a real showdown. Um,
It's one of my favorite things about westerns. By the way, if you like Dragon Ball Z, you like westerns. Um, it
yeah,
it
in a
takes all the
weird sort
piss. Yeah,
in a weird sort of way, yeah, kind of, yeah.
it all comes down to the duel, baby. There's all this build up about the good guy versus the bad guy, and the bad guy's coming to town, and then there's the duel. Sergio Leone. s- I understand if you don't like spaghetti westerns because spaghetti westerns are its own sort of wacky brand of
Hmm.
western. And if you
Yeah.
like John Ford westerns, there's a decent chance you don't like spaghetti westerns
And
and
that's
vice
how it
versa.
was in my house because my mom didn't just love John Ford. She did not like Sergio Leone.
And I like both. I grew up with both, loved both. Uh Ridiculous. I don't I'm stupid childhood.
Yeah.
Just watching westerns on the weekend. Like I had nothing cool to talk about at school. Other kids were all like, "Yeah, I watched WWE yesterday. What'd you watch?" I was like, "Oh, I watched, for a few dollars."
I couldn't even watch WWE, but like I remember talking about it, like pretending to know or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. I mean, it was
But it was
great.
good because it gave the other kid like something to like to tell me about. So it was kind of
Yeah.
like I was more like feeding. I was giving him something to talk about.
Look, I've never gotten into wrestling. All of my best friends in grade school super into wrestling. Some of them like went to like WrestleMania and
Hell
crap like
yeah.
that. And I never understood the love of wrestling. Not that I'm judging it, I just never understood it. And then very recently, someone was all like, "Oh yeah," and then like Rhea Ripley, and they showed a picture of Rhea Ripley. I was like, wrestling women are totally different than when we were kids.
Oh yeah.
Like Rhea Ripley is like smoking insane hot and also physically a talent. We had China.
And also rip you in half, kind of.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, she's a beast. She is an absolute athlete. We had China. Absolute athlete, but also nobody was hanging up posters of China on their wall.
That is not true. That is statistically not true.
I mean,
I distinctly remember, and I remember thinking, why?
look, okay. Now I'm not trying to like shame
See, the
China.
thing
My
is,
point is just
here's the thing where you're maybe kind of forgetting here is that like yes, China was absolutely was the athlete. She was one of the few. I don't want to say like 'cause I can't speak definitively, but she was one of the only like actually physically built for wrestling chicks because most of the wrestling talent back then was people like Sable and crap like that. I don't want to say crap like that, but they were there for their looks way more than their
and now you get
physical
both.
abilities.
And now you get both.
So
Gen Z is so spoiled. They were spoiled. Ridiculous.
but yes, no, I remember I definitely remember I definitely well, I mean, see Andrew really just wanted everyone to be Xena.
I mean, I yeah, Lucy Lawless. Hell yeah. Thing I'm working on now is just that. It's just a continuation of my fascination of Xena Warrior Princess. Definitely guilty. Um, no, but what I was saying about spaghetti westerns versus like John Ford westerns. Love John Ford westerns, but spaghetti westerns have more fun in the climax. The climax of a spaghetti western is often
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
much more just like over the top. And also, I mean, a 5-second moment, like in reality, it's 5 seconds. Sergio Leone can stretch it to like 3 or 4 minutes of like suspense
Yeah.
and waiting, and then the payoff still feels good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, that sort of happens in Kevin Costner westerns. He does it differently. He doesn't do the buildup of music and cutting and stuff like that. But what he does do is he hints at the danger of a character and he makes you question about whether or not this old tired man or how dangerous, and then he builds up to the confrontation, and then he almost always undercuts the confrontation in some way with like a dose of reality. In Open
Mhm.
Range, they build up to this confrontation between the gunslinger and Kevin Costner's character. And so in the very first second of the gunfight, Kevin Costner executes the guy in a dirty trick. "Oh, you're the most dangerous guy?" Shoots him in the face to start the fight. And everybody's like, "Wait, what?" There's no fight between you never get to see the gunfighter do anything fancy. No fancy gun tricks because Kevin Costner's character just kills him immediately. Incredible. In
Smart thing to do.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why I like Kevin Costner's westerns is none of his characters are particularly dumb, usually. Like he doesn't waste time on a character making dumb decisions for dumb decisions' sake.
Hmm.
Um, we've talked about that before where we like a character that,
Yeah. I
I'm
never
okay
want
with
to be
characters making mistakes,
yeah, but I
but
still want to be 2 steps ahead of them.
right. In Horizon, they have this build up to a gunfight where like the guy is supposed to be dangerous and you haven't really figured out whether the other character's kind of dangerous, and the dangerous guy is antagonizing this other character. And then when it does get to a fight, like the guy who's supposed to be dangerous gets overwhelmed by the brutality of the other character. The other character isn't like fast gunslinger or anything. He's just brutal and aggressive, and it overwhelms this guy who is fancy and dangerous. And it's got one of the coolest shots in a gunfight
Mm.
ever. Like the gunfight is this one continuous shot, and then as it moves over and you see this like trough of water exploding from rounds hitting it, you see in the reflection Kevin Costner sneaking up while shooting at the to keep the guy's head down, to keep the villain's head down. And then when he stops and the guy goes to look over the trough, so he's sort of looking to frame left, you see Kevin Costner's reflection in the trough of water off to his right out of his peripheral vision, and he shoots him in the back, well, shoots him in the side. And so it all works very like it's a cool gunfight, and it's not like John Wick. It's just like it's a
Yeah.
dude who is more experienced in gunfighting overwhelming a guy who is faster and better technically, but just not as experienced.
Mm.
It's so while for me personally, I'm like, oh, it's great. Academically, it is not the best movie,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's good. It's worth your time. You got 3 hours. You got 3 hours, and you like a slow burn western. You're never going to regret seeing the build up and then the payoff of that fight.
Right. For Horizon,
Horizon,
not Zero Dawn.
not Zero Dawn. Horizon Zero Dawn is 9 out of 10 for me. Horizon Zero Dawn is an 8 out of 10 for me. Forbidden West is a 9 out of 10 for me.
Mm. I see. So I want to say a game that's rating wise is probably the same as its movie. Maybe it's even better than the movie, and that's Star Wars Episode 3. In fact,
Really?
7's probably too generous for the film. If we rated films based on a single actor's performance, that film would have been like a 9.5 for Ian McDermott. But it's like the rest of them, including Academy Award winning, I think she's won an Academy Award actress, Natalie Portman, they're all like acting at like a 2. Ewan McGregor's kind of acting at a 7.
Because they're acting towards tennis balls in sets that have no reference points.
And George Lucas's direction, but but like
hard
even poor Samuel L. Jackson's kind of boring in the movie. But there's a video game for Star Wars Episode 3, and it's made by the Collective, so like Shiny Entertainment, Double Helix, and the single player is not bad. It's actually like, oh, this is pretty decent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it shined and where it kind of gained fame is it has a multiplayer versus mode. So it has a versus mode where you could just pick like kind of like a fighting game, like a somewhere between a 3D fighter and an arena fighter, and you just pick 2 Jedis and they have lightsaber duels, and they have a bunch of different courses you can play on, a bunch of different characters, and the fighting is bizarrely legit.
Really?
Like bizarre. I mean, these are a lot of devs who went on to make Killer Instinct 2013, so there's precedence here. So this was a game people rented out of just sort of like, oh, let me just check it out when Episode 3 came out like 20 years ago now.
And it's somehow a hidden gem.
And it's a hidden gem because I mean, like, yeah, you have other games like The Phantom Menace on PlayStation 1 and it's garbage. And there's Attack of the Clones, the official Attack of the Clones game, and that's not very good either. But there is a Star Wars Episode 3 game. It only came out on maybe Xbox, I think PS2 and Xbox. And it's actually not even bad single player. It's like a pretty decent ass single. I think it might even be co-op. But it has this absolutely legit versus mode, like a strongly, bizarrely legit with like secret characters and places and stuff. And it's like, what? This is like way too good for what it is.
I
Now,
love shit like this. I love it when a movie game is way too good for. I love it when like movie tie-in anything is way better than it has any right to be.
right, yeah.
This is genuinely maybe the most exciting thing you've brought up.
So so you have this game that has a legitimately good versus multiplayer mode and an pretty decent single player campaign mode as well. but it got like no advertising or press because like at the time, people were like, "Here's Republic Commando." They were really in. I remember Star Wars Battlefront, the first
Right.
Battlefront one
Yeah,
and
yeah,
two.
yeah.
They were really obsessed with kind of like pushing those games at the time. So they had this Episode 3 game, but they're like, yeah, there's an Episode 3 game, whatever. Like, except it actually has a legit fighting game mode in it. That's like worlds better than Masters of the Terrascasi, which is like a 4 out of 10, 3 out of 10 kind of game. But like, yeah, so Double Helix and Shiny Entertainment made a absolutely solid, really good Episode 3 game. Now, is it 8 out of 10? The thing is, there will be people, I guarantee you, there'll be people listening to this podcast who probably may or may not comment, who will tell you that that game is definitely better than a 7. That game is absolutely, they have huge fond memories playing with their brother, their friend, their neighbor. This game was great, and I know, because I remember I had a friend who was obsessed with Star Wars and even loved the prequels, God knows why. And he got the game, and then he was like, "This game is great. This game is great." I'm like, "Yeah, you love everything prequel. This game is well, okay. This game's actually pretty good." So, Star Wars Episode 3. There's no subtitle. There's no weird. It's not even like the official game of the movie or whatever. It's just Star Wars Episode 3 on PS2 and I think Xbox One. Oh no, not one. Original. It is a shockingly good, solid game, especially if you have another person to fight with in the versus mode. Like the ultimate 7 out of 10 video game experience.
That's how I felt about Conker's Bad Fur Day Reloaded, the multiplayer in that.
Mm,
I felt like it was, I mean, a lot of people loved it, but it was like this weird hidden gem where I got Conker's Bad Fur Day Reloaded purely because I had nostalgia for the original and wanted to play it on Xbox. And then stumbling onto how much I loved the multiplayer in
mhm.
that game and like really played the hell out of that multiplayer. Like I love it when you find something like that. And love the first time you try to convince someone it's good. Like not after you've proven it and stuff, like not after the first, but like you're just like, oh no, it's really good, and everybody's always like, yeah, really. They think you're messing with them. I don't know why I love moments like that because that's in my mind that's a real hidden gem. Where it's like sometimes
Mhm.
when people say a hidden gem, it's like a game that's really good. It just didn't get popular for whatever reason. In my mind, a really good hidden gem is a game that shouldn't be good.
Yeah.
It has no right or reason to be, and yet it kicks ass. I love that kind of crap. I don't know that I will ever hunt down this game to give it a try. One, because I'm complete garbage at fighting games.
Yeah.
I play them with friends, but
Yeah.
like
And the campaign's not a fighting game, mind you.
right, right.
It,
It's
it's
just like a
it's just
side.
an action game.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I love that. That's so cool. Uh, and I also love the idea that like those guys went on to make arguably one of the most popular fighting games of recent memory
Yeah.
in terms of just like community. Like still great.
And Microsoft's done nothing with it.
Yeah, well, Microsoft, it's like everybody in the industry just doesn't want to do anything with good IP. They're like, yeah, we have good IP. We're not going to do anything with it, but we
Killer
have it.
Instinct is the most bizarre thing I think. I think period right now, maybe even the most bizarre thing in the industry, because every crazy decision. Oh, how could they do this? How could they shut this down? There is a thought train. However wrong that thought train is, or train of thought, however wrong that train of thought is, there is a train of thought for why all these things are happening in this industry. Most of it dealing with short term gains, right?
And bad project management, which we've
Microsoft not being interested in any way, shape, or form of making a new Killer Instinct after the insane success of the first one is mind boggling. Like, absolutely mind boggling. It's mind boggling when they were hiring a bunch of companies. They didn't buy Double Helix. Instead, they let
right.
Amazon go and buy them and do nothing with them. And then they switched over to Iron Galaxy and they never bought Iron Galaxy even after they took over and successfully continued Killer Instinct. And they still never bought Iron Galaxy. And just yesterday, or 2 days ago, they announced Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 remake by Iron Galaxy.
Mhm.
And all the acquisitions and buyouts, Microsoft never bought Iron Galaxy. They've shuttered other studios that they've bought, but they never bought the one company that actually, both studios that actually full on gave them a huge success during the Xbox One era, in which there were hardly any successes. Everything was a disappointment or a failure. 343 Industries, we're looking at you. Um, they never bought either studio. They never, and even if we're not buying the studio, they didn't even continue the franchise. They just, oh, we had this unexpectedly really big successful game that we paid very little money to get made, and then we almost lost it, but then we had another studio come in and finish it, and it still worked out. And did we buy the second studio? No, we still didn't buy them. We still haven't bought them. They're laying off people. They're trying to they're on the verge of going under, and Microsoft's just like, really do. No one's buying our game. It's like, you
It's one
you dumb motherfuckers.
you wanna
You
give the benefit of the doubt, like, you wanna be like,
for 5 years, the game was like a pure profit churner for
yeah,
them, and they're like, do another one? No.
I can't figure out
You're,
I
you're beyond. I'm sorry, but like, the decision there is just beyond fucking stupid. Just push ahead with Redfall. How'd that work out for you? I mean, do I have to list all the cancellations and failures? And it's just like, and you yet that studio, Iron Galaxy, was still there
how
all
long
that
are
time, that they could have just bought them. They could have just started a new KI, and they fucking didn't.
well, it's frustrating because for the longest time, the argument from fanboys of Xbox, or I mean, even to an extent, me, is like you expect maybe they're playing 4D chess, like there's something behind the scenes as to why they couldn't or wouldn't do and I think now we have to confront the fact it's just like nobody knows what they're doing over there. Like no one has a finger on the pulse of the industry at Microsoft or at Sony. Sony's a mess. We've heard, you know, how many rumors over the last 5
Yeah.
years that Sony's directionless, they're rudderless. They don't know what to do. Is it legacy of Jim? Is Jim Ryan's legacy that he came in and broke the steering wheel off and just sort of threw it out the window?
Yeah, well, I think he turned it towards life service and then broke the steering wheel and then got in a lifeboat.
Yeah, and it's like I think that there was a solid amount of time where we assumed that okay, mistakes were happening, but there was an overall plan at Xbox, at Sony. But really it seems like Nintendo's the only one that has any kind of plan and is sticking to it.
And the plan is to stick to the course.
Yeah.
Just
And
just keep making a bunch of little stuff while we do big stuff in the
but it
background. And
works. It works really well. And you can't argue with the results. They're the only
you,
ones that seem like they are consistent at all,
yeah,
you know?
it's like,
That's
and
wild.
things just kind of work out for them. But like, anyways, tangent there aside, it's just kind of one of those mind-boggling things. I'm just like, I can't understand. I understand the mentality behind shutting all these studios down and laying all these people off. You're wrong, because a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. But yeah, you lost a bunch of money. You short-term gains from this, blah 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 blah. We had a product. It wildly exceeded our expectations. Should we do anything with it? No. Okay, well, then you have no idea how to fucking run a business, I guess. Just fuck us, I guess.
I don't know what map they're reading, but it ain't the one that I've ever read before.
Like, what, where, I'm like, holy hell. Anyways, but and really the only answer is just that, like, well, nobody at Microsoft really is no producer, nobody high enough at Microsoft probably wants to do KI, because none of them play fighting games. They barely even know what a fighting game is. They're probably it just doesn't cross their mind. Like, and I'm like, I guess, but there's the other side of me is like, yeah, but you can read numbers though. That's the only thing you do know how to do is read charts and graphs. This is a chart and graph that just went up from its budget to release. So
if we're really speculating on it, I think it's the same reason that studios started making blockbusters and only blockbusters, even though they could make 20 really good small movies.
Right. Yeah.
They made 3 times their budget. Yeah, but it's only 60 million. It's like only 60 million. They they look at the fighting game community, and granted, the FGC is bigger than it's ever been,
but it's still small.
but it's still small,
Relatively small.
especially compared to the shooter community.
Right,
Or
because the thing is like
yeah,
when I'm talking about like why did we got to make a game like Redfall because they were hoping for Destiny.
yeah, they were
They were
hoping for
thinking
a,
they were
you
good.
know,
They were thinking they were going to make a billy off this, you know.
it's
So
sad. But those
and
are our
in
7 out of 10 games.
yeah, and in no universe, I just want to say, no universe is Killer Instinct, no matter how popular it has been or gotten. In no universe will Killer Instinct ever make $1 billion. In no universe will any fighting game, ever make $1 billion off of one title alone.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe, possibly, potentially, Mortal Kombat.
yeah, I was gonna say Mortal Kombat could maybe.
If it was in the right place at the right time and just killed it and everyone loved it, maybe you could kind of maybe stretch to get there, especially with a bunch of the way they microtransaction the hell out of it. But like the best selling fighting game of all time, Smash Brothers Ultimate, I don't think they've made $1 billion off of that game. I don't think. I mean, I'm not Scott Steiner. I can't crunch the numbers, but does 35 million or whatever, does 35 million times 60, does that equal $1 billion? So
I
I don't think it does.
35 times 60 is 2100. Add a million to that. Is that
Is that 2 billion?
oh,
The numbers don't lie. Spell disaster for you. Sacrifice.
I think that's $2 billion.
Okay.
$2.1 billion.
Okay, so Smash Brothers Ultimate with its
But that's
not
not
even
profit.
well, that's also not counting all the DLC. For both the Fighters Pass, individual fighters, all the Mii costumes.
35 million copies. It's 60. Yeah, they've made $1 billion on that motherfucker. They with all the DLC and everything. Yeah, they done did it. But I will have to reference the facts, and that is Smash Brothers isn't a fighting game. On that note, we have some patrons to thank. That's too controversial. No, this is the upbeat, non-controversial episode. 7 out of 10 stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed.
All things considering, Mortal Kombat may have actually crossed $1 billion. Then, all things considered, we take like 9 or X, or 11, say like 10, 11 million sales. Thing is, those games didn't all sell at 60. Smash Brothers never dropped in price. So
Right.
it's kind of that's a nice thing about Nintendo games on Switch is we can literally tell how much they made because they never drop the price.
That, and it's like if you're talking about profit versus Smash Brothers, we know that Nintendo gets basically all the profit. It doesn't sell on any other store.
Right.
But
they have to divvy that out to third parties as well, who are, characters are in the game.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah, I didn't think about that. I was going to say, Warner Brothers is splitting profit on Mortal Kombat anywhere that it sells.
Yeah.
So
they're
it's
giving
like
30% to Steam, 30% to Sony, 30% to Microsoft.
So it's like, hey, but the point still stands. Like, KI wasn't going to hit that kind of number. Could it have if they would have stuck with it? Maybe. Yeah, we'll never friggin' know now. Like, I don't.
Right.
They abandoned a successful game to pursue other games that were It's that whole idea of like they pursued trends rather than set trends.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how you.
Right, because I think what you said is right. Like the thinking is that like, well, fighting games doing well is great, but no fighting game's ever done that great for anyone. So we should be investing in genres that have made $1 billion and have made it more than once. We should not be wasting our time with a fighting game. I'm sure that's probably where the mentality went, but I mean, egg on your face, man. Every single fucking project that came out of Microsoft for like 10 years didn't do that well. Like their best-selling shit was Minecraft, and they didn't even make it.
Yeah, now that they're not the dominant ecosystem at all, and they'll never be again.
Yeah, it's Man, I don't. Yeah, whole nother episode there, but I don't know. I don't know. We've talked about it. I don't know. I don't know if Microsoft will ever gain market share back.
No, they
And
won't. I mean, the best thing that they can hope for is that they're going to be a very successful third party.
which
Which,
isn't real. Who cares?
yeah, it's not
Like,
bad.
the thing is, I'm not even like raw about my PS5. I'm like, I don't even really like it that much. So,
It is a fine console, but it is one of the most wasted consoles that has ever existed.
yeah, for sure.
But on that note, I hope you guys enjoyed 7 out of 10
We stand.
episode.
We stand 7's.
We stand 7s. Now, granted, if maybe you get an argument as to why something I said shouldn't be a 7, maybe you can't come around to the truth about Resident Evil 6. Maybe you can't look that in the eye. I read all your comments. Woe is me. I do read them. Uh, so comment on the YouTube channel, comment on Twitter, comment on Blue Sky. Blue Sky is where I'm spending most of my time, but I do still check Twitter every now and then, mostly because of self-hate. But I'm on there. But as always,
Very Catholic of you.
I stay on brand. As always, we've got producers to thank. If you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. Dude of the week was David D. Thank you, David. And our producers for this episode are Dragon Wolf Makoto, Austenite, Zybernite, Skernami, Koroi35, Hyper Viper 89, LCL Mayhem, and Ziggy Z. Thank you, dudes. We'll catch you next time.
Later, dudes.